All right, we'll call to order the Planning Commission meeting of Thursday, June 6th, 2024. If we can start with roll call, please.
Chair Dennison.
Here.
Vice Chair Pefsner. Commissioner Moran. Here. Commissioner Simcock.
Here.
Commissioner Yu.
Here.
Chair, you have the quorum to conduct the meeting.
Great, thank you. Next up, I'll look for an approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as is.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, we have the approval of minutes. First is the meeting minutes for the Planning Commission meeting of April 18th, 2024. Are there any edits anyone would like to make? I will entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Next up are the minutes of May 2nd. Any edits to those minutes? I will look for a motion to,
Sorry, Chair Dennison, Vice Chair Petzner did have an edit to line 225 for those minutes.
outstanding. So I will look for a motion to approve them as edited.
Motion to approve as edited.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will abstain from that meeting. Motion carries.
Okay.
Next up will be the minutes of May 16th. Any edits to those? All right. I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Move to approve the minutes as is.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? One abstention. Motion carries. Next up is our City Council Liaison Report. I believe that Councilperson Garcia is filling in for our usual liaison.
Also for the alternate. Good evening, Chair Dennison and commissioners and staff. How are you this evening? Good to see you. Just a couple updates. I know a couple of you were at the last meeting, but we had, I guess would be the, talked about home occupation permits and temporary use permits. And, as you know, that went to you and it came back to us. The council decided that two temporary use permits per year would probably be better than one. That was kind of the consensus of the council. But I think we're supposed to have the first reading, but I think that creates some other issues as far as noticing and things like that, because if you're doing one, then there's probably not as much you need to do to mitigate one meeting or one temporary use permit per address. So since we're doing two, we might have another first reading. I'm not sure. The agenda just came out today. I don't know what the staff report says yet, but I have a feeling that's going to happen. Also, we heard the appeal from Alverno, and I know a couple of the commissioners were there for that. And thank you for being there and speaking. That was very helpful. And thank you for all the hard work the commission has done regarding that conditional use permit, specifically the villa. So the council decided that we would pretty much go with what the commission brought to us, your suggestions for 2025, only 13 events at the villa. But what we also decided was that in October, when the annual review is up, rather than it coming to you and then maybe facing another appeal, it's going to come directly to the city council. And so we're going to decide then and there, with the hopes that everything's clean and those 13 can go back up to 26 if they're following their conditional use permit per the code. We're very optimistic because we do have off-duty Sierra Madre police acting as event monitor. So we think that's probably going to help alleviate some of the issues that the neighbors are having, and hopefully that will cure some of those problems. And I think for issues relative to what your purview is, that's really all I have to report. We also did get a letter of support. This is kind of outside the planning commission, but I think it's newsworthy and noteworthy. We did have Catherine Barger issue a letter of support for Sierra Madre regarding funding and help for human wildlife conflict. So that went to the Board of Supervisors a couple days ago. I think all 5 of them are signing it and sending it up to Department of Fish and Wildlife. We, as you know, we have a very good relationship with DFW. We have a very good relationship with the director, Chuck Bonham. So he knows that the letter's coming. But it's a very nice letter. It's not aggressive or anything. And it's really looking for us to have a regional approach to this issue. Because it's Department of Fish and Wildlife is generally a state, looking at things on the state level. We're a little different than Mammoth and South Lake Tahoe, and I think they realize that. So I'm really urging a regional look to what's going on with wildlife and the uptick in wildlife within urban areas on the wildlife urban interface. And we're very, very hopeful that the support from those 5 supervisors can go a long way into getting those positions funded so our residents can continue to have the services and education that we've been having over the last year or so. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, love to entertain them.
Any questions? Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks again for all the work that you do.
Thank you. Next up is community input. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning an item that is not on the agenda. The Commission welcomes your attendance and participation. When addressing the Commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record, and please keep comments to no more than 3 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting. All right, we will move on to public hearings. First up is a disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts.
Just drove by.
Same as last time, and between last time and this time, nothing.
I did drive by the location, and I did run into the applicant for the second public hearing publicly, but did not have any ex parte contact that wasn't already in the report.
I just drove by.
Nothing to report.
Great. First up is a public hearing for 205 South Mountain Trail Avenue, Design Review Permit 23-05. Does staff have a presentation?
Yes, Chair, staff have a presentation for you. It will be delivered by Planner Wolf.
Thank you, Manager Lynn, and good evening, Chair Dennison and Planning Commissioners. Tonight, the Planning Commission will be reviewing the revised design for a project at 205 South Mountain Trail, which is an application and design review permit, DRP 2305. This hearing is continued from the May 2nd, 2024 meeting. The applicant requests the same thing as last time. It's a consideration consideration for the existing and proposed semi-subterranean garages, together equaling 763 square feet, as partial basements, exempt and not calculated to the gross floor area. The second is the construction of additions to an existing single-family residence in excess of 3,500 square feet. The third is the construction of a second-story addition. And fourth is to find the project categorically exempt from environmental review. At the May 2nd meeting, the Planning Commission commented on the design. The first was to reduce the building mass above the garage or kitchen, and second was to move the roof deck away from the side yard and face it toward the rear yard to respect the privacy of the southern neighbor. To refresh the Planning Commission's memory, the project is located and situated within the southwest quadrant of the city on South Mountain Trail Avenue between Lowell Avenue and East Bonita, and it is within the residential low-density land use designation with a zone of R1-15. The project data remains the same by the revisions. Just let me know if you'd like a refresher on what goes on here. Regarding the gross floor area, that part is highlighted. It is compliant should the Planning Commission find exemption of the of the 763 square foot partial basements of garages to not be computed toward the gross floor area. And the other parts of this are to do with the existing legally constructed non-conforming side yard setbacks. So on screen now is the site plan of the original proposal saw on May 2nd. Please take note of the golden highlighted area near the center of the property, which represents the area of the roof deck. The revised plan, now shown on screen, pulls the usable area of the roof deck away from the south side yard so that it can be focused toward the backyard. Also take note that the extent of the roof deck in the revised design is about 2 feet recessed behind the building wall plane of the second floor. The upcoming slides will show how the removed deck area is resolved. On slide now is the roof plan, originally proposed and revised. On this plan, the orientation has been rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise so that north now faces, points towards the left of slide. And highlighted here is the area of the roof deck. So above you see where the area of the roof deck extends towards the south end here and continues wrapping around the part of the second floor. In the original design, the area of the roof deck measures about 1,036 square feet. And in the revised design, that measures now only 360 square feet. And then you can also see that the removed deck area is resolved with a hip roof atop the first floor above the kitchen and dining room. There's a side-by-side comparison of the section elevations. In the original design, the parapet roof structure is incorporated around the roof deck, providing privacy of views from the street level. And in the revised design, the roof deck no longer continues along the side or extends towards the front. Therefore, no privacy structure is necessary, and thus is removed and replaced with a hip roof atop the kitchen, creating a small attic space above. Now comparing the exterior elevations, first with the front or east elevation. In the original design, the privacy structure for the roof deck created that massing above the kitchen area. The wall height measured from the bottom of the property line wall is about 12 feet 3 inches, and the overall height measured from the same point is about 14 feet 10 inches. In the revised design, the privacy structure is replaced by that hip roof and lowered to the first floor plate height. The comparable wall height is 9 feet, reduced by 3 feet 3 inches, and the comparable overall height is now 13 feet 4 inches, reduced by 1 feet 6 inches. And visually, you can see how there is a big difference in reducing the massing, how that makes on the project design. At the rear or west elevation, in the original design, the roof deck extends toward the south side yard and incorporated privacy features in solid deck railing. In the revised design, the roof deck in the southern portion is removed and replaced with a hip roof. From this view, it is over the dining room. At the south elevation, in the original design, the roof deck's privacy features are most visible in the solid deck railing and raised parapet structures. In the revised design, the reduction in building mass is best demonstrated by the incorporation of the hip roof at the top plate level of the first floor. A solid rail for the roof deck remains, although it is tucked behind the hip roof. And as a refresher, the nearest second floor wall to the south property line is 26 feet 6 inches, meaning that the extent of the roof deck in the revised design is recessed behind that wall plane an extra 2 feet, or 28 feet 6 inches. The revision caused no change to the north elevation, so here it is proposed originally and currently. Now comparing the colored elevations, the visual differences in the reduction of building mass becomes most apparent. The left half of the slide is the original above and revised below. On the left half is the front elevation. Reducing the mass to bring a hipped roof to the first floor top plate height ties the design together by matching the first floor line elevation to the other portions of the design. In doing so, emphasis is now drawn to the first floor, especially where shadow lines will be created by deep eaves proposed by the design. The second floor is well designed to be minimized in visual appearance by being recessed within roof planes rather than sitting atop the roof. The right half of the slide here compares the original and revised north elevation, and as mentioned previously, there is no change in that elevation. Now moving on to the other elevations, on the left half of the slide here is the rear elevation. Above is the original and below is the revised. And the right half is the south elevation with the original above and the revised below. In the revised design, the incorporation of the hip roof ties the design elements of other portions of the project, especially the second floor, together to better represent as one cohesive project. The street elevations have been revised and corrected. A correction was needed where the original design did not accurately represent the elevation of the neighbor to the south, which is more accurately at about 5 feet above where it was originally drawn. The revision better represents the actual elevation here of the neighbor to the south. Together with the reduction in building mass, the proposed project does a much better job of demonstrating it can blend in and be compatible with the character of its neighborhood. Here are some side-by-side comparisons of the 3D models. Above is the original design and below is the revised design. These angles as viewed from the street and slightly south of the property. And again, more 3D model perspectives. These angles are taken from as viewed on the street slightly north of the property. And then because the request remains for the exemption of the floor areas of those garages, I just wanted to add that the municipal code does not express that such exclusion requires the partial basements to be hidden from public view. Instead, it requires that approval of an administrative design review permit be granted for exclusion. In the case of this project, the existing 2-car garage being part of the partial basement is well incorporated within the overall design of the proposed project, and the proposed 1-car garage being the other part of the partial basement is also well incorporated within the overall design of the proposed project, and further utilizes its roof as an extension of the front porch as an open-air front deck, reflective of the front deck that is currently present. Moreover, the visual appearance of these areas will be diminished by the abundance of landscaping proposed for the project. So in comparing the original findings to the findings by the revised plan, the new finding for finding 1, that the project is consistent with the general plan, zoning code, and any applicable design standards. We now find that the single-story element remains as the primary feature, demonstrated by the continuously level first floor roof line. Deep eaves will create a prominent shadow line along the facade that will further draw focus onto the first story element. The street elevation has been corrected to represent the accurate elevations relative to the neighboring properties. The next finding that was updated to be made for approval is on finding 3, in that the height, bulk, scale, mass, and siding of the proposed project be compatible with the existing neighborhood landforms and surroundings, and that the Mediterranean architectural style blends in with a diverse eclectic styles of other residences. The single-story design element is emphasized in the strategic use of architectural detailing, deep eaves, and a roof line at a consistent elevation. The revised design significantly reduces the appearance of bulk and mass at the south end of the proposed project, respecting the privacy and viewshed of the neighbor. The next finding that was contended was finding 4, that the proposed project reflects the scale of the neighborhood in which it is proposed and does not visually overpower or dominate the neighborhood. In that the proposed design is a contemporary take on the Mediterranean architectural style, minimizing the use of ornate details that could otherwise be present. The simplified design is respectful to the same simple ranch designs present throughout the immediate neighborhood. The massing reflects the wide-spanning building design, reflective across many other homes on South Mountain Trail Avenue. And finally, the other finding that was updated is finding 8D, where siding of the structure is in keeping with the landform and so as to maximize open space, public views, and neighbor views and privacy. That the revised design has significantly reduced the size of the deck, pulling it away from the neighbor and buffering by a hipped roof atop the ground floor. The alternatives for Planning Commission tonight are to approve the application pursuant to the Planning Commission resolution, approve it with modifications, deny the application, or continue the public hearing, providing direction to staff and the applicant. The recommendation tonight is to approve the application pursuant to Planning Commission Resolution 2403. That concludes my presentation.
Any questions for staff?
No questions.
I wanted some clarification on what you were saying about the code and exempting garage space. Can you provide clarity on that? Because they're not changing the existing garage space. So I didn't understand how in the code we're allowed to give them an exemption for something that's already existing and clearly faces the street and is clearly visible. So can you help me understand that?
So if I go back to this slide and you can see it, there are several definitions that take place here. The first is for partial basement, which has an extensive definition. And analysis has been done to find that this can be qualified as a partial basement. And the second is for gross floor area and where it exempts from the gross floor area computation, partial basement subject to the approval of a design review permit. So it's not exemption of a garage space, it's exemption of a partial basement.
So part of the code I thought reflected its visibility from the street, and I don't see that here. Can you help explain where that fits in?
Right, so the municipal code does not express that exemption from the gross floor area for partial basements requires as a criteria visibility or hiding from public view. So that's not a part of it. And to clarify, that was a comment by the Planning Commission at last meeting.
Okay, any other questions for council? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant and the property owner are here tonight should you have questions for them.
Okay. Do they have a presentation or not? They don't need to. It was just,
Good evening, Commissioners. First, I want to thank the Planning Department and Joshua because he's really making good representation. So he's making my job easier. We reviewed the conditions that were sent to us, and I think we're fine with it. All the conditions we read, and we're fine with it. So if there's any question, let me know.
all right. Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will take public comment on this specific agendized item. Any person may address the Planning Commission on this specific item. When addressing the commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Please keep comments no more than 3 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting.
I guess I could start. I'm almost amazed at what 2 feet, I think, or so, just lowering that whole section did to the look of the house. So congratulations on a very good job on my major concern, and honestly why I didn't want to let the existing garage be not part of it, because that side of the house was just so massive before. It looks, to me, it looks a lot better to me. I think they did a great job on that. So thank you.
I'll echo that. I wasn't honestly expecting the look and feel to be that much different based on just the feedback for the privacy of the neighbor, but then to me it really ties the whole project together, and it looks very cohesive and much more beautiful as a house. And I don't think I appreciated how the privacy shield previously was kind of I feel like messing with the look and feel of the house. So to me, not only does it have the privacy function, it's a much more beautiful house. So I hope that the applicants will enjoy it.
So thank you for taking the two comments that we had into heart. And yeah, I think this is much better in scale and privacy factor. So I'm ready to go with this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say the same. We reviewed this before.
Yeah.
I can make all the findings, so very nice revision.
Good job.
Great. I'd certainly like to thank staff for another wonderful presentation showing the before and after pictures. That's super helpful to us, so thank you. And thank you to the applicant for hearing the concerns of the commission. And I'll look for a motion to approve design review permit 23-05.
I'll make a motion to approve design review permit 2305 as presented.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business is 123 South Baldwin Avenue, the Twycross House, circa 1914, a certificate of appropriateness 24-01. Does staff have a presentation for us, Manager Lin?
Chair Dennison, we do. Planner Wolf will deliver the presentation.
After he shakes hands and stuff, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Manager Lin. And good evening again, Commissioners. Tonight, the Planning Commission is also reviewing an application for certificate of appropriateness for the proposed project at 123 South Baldwin Avenue, known as the Twycross House. The property is currently designated, excuse me one second. Sorry, the property is currently designated and listed as a historic landmark. The applicant request for certificate of appropriateness includes the full material alteration to the existing roof appropriate for the Craftsman architectural style and in relationship with the context of its surroundings. The property is situated along the west side of South Baldwin Avenue, just south of Esperanza and near the west terminus of Lowell Avenue. The property is within the residential high-density land use designation and is within the R313 zone, being a multifamily development for up to 13 dwelling units per acre. The property is also located within the residential entrepreneur overlay. And the property is also comprised of 3 contiguous parcels. The main house is sited on the middle and largest of the 3 parcels, and the garage straddles the shared lot line of the middle and northern parcel. All 3 parcels together equal a land area of about 18,000 square feet. So for code applicability, the Sierra Madre Municipal Code requires that all permits for alteration, restoration, rehabilitation, remodeling, addition, change of use, demolition, or relocation of historic landmarks which alter the exterior appearance as seen from the public view shall require a certificate of appropriateness from the Commission. The California Environmental Quality Act does not apply to classes of projects designated pursuant to CEQA guidelines, which include a list of classes of projects that have been determined not to have significant effect on the environment and such are exempt from CEQA. However, there is an exception. A project that may cause substantial adverse change in the significance of a historic resource shall not be exempted under Class 31 categorical exemption. And I'll go on more about that later in this presentation. That's concerning. Okay. So the existing site condition is seen on left on the picture. Has a roof that is a rolled asphalt. It's described as a rolled asphalt roof. And as you've seen on the lower left is as viewed from the street. And on the right is an image of the 1927 Sanborn fire insurance maps. And as you can see, there are several black dots on within the building footprint. Those black dots represent that, or indicate that the building roof was comprised of a composite material. The applicant is proposing to replace that rolled asphalt roof with a composite shingle roof. And in this case, this is the Timberline Ultra High Definition composite shingle. and it essentially means that it is dimensional and not appearing as flat as a traditional composite shingle roof. This variety of asphalt shingle comes in a number of color options. The Planning Commission is being asked to choose one or more to be used consistently on the house, and to be clear, the goal would be to choose one consistent color while offering the applicant a number of options, or maybe just one option of a color blend to use that is appropriate. The Sierra Madre Municipal Code requires that the Commission promulgate and publish such standards as are necessary to supplement the provisions of this chapter to inform property owners and the general public of those standards of review by which applications for certificate of appropriateness are to be judged. No such standards are promulgated by the Commission are known to be published. The applicant was kind enough to provide reference from the City of Long Beach, which the Sierra Madre Planning Commission may consider in its review of this certificate of appropriateness. The Sierra Madre Municipal Code goes on to say that using the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation as a guide, the Commission shall approve the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for any proposed work if and only if it can make certain findings. The National Park Service has published a document called the Secretary of Interior Standards for the treatment of historic properties with guidelines for preserving, rehabilitating, restoring, and reconstructing historic buildings, and was last updated in 2017. In the context of the Twycross House, the guidelines for rehabilitation may be less appropriate or applicable than the guidelines for restoration due to the fact based in evidence that the present roof material is not original to the building's construction. The City of Long Beach Cultural Heritage Commission has published many guidelines tailored for preservation of historic landmarks specific for certain districts within its city, alongside architectural style guides for such properties which may not be within a designated historic district. Long Beach Cultural Heritage Commission used the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties as a reference to create these guides. The City of Long Beach's guidelines indicate that preserving wood shingles as roof material is encouraged and that replacing it with composite shingles is acceptable. Due to wood shingles as roofing material being high-risk fire hazard and much of Sierra Madre being in a high fire hazard severity zone, staff would not align with the encouragement of preserving wood shingles on roofs. This guide also mentions that roof color should not be as dark as black, but instead be a darker neutral color. In City of Sierra Madre, staff have encouraged use of natural earth tone colors for craftsman-style buildings. In many cases, those colors end up being some variety of green or brown to complement the colors of surrounding oaks. The guidelines for restoration within the Secretary of Interior standards recommends recreating missing roofing material or roof features that existed during the restoration period based on documentary and physical evidence, and does not recommend constructing a roof feature that was part of the original design for the building but was never actually built, or a feature that was thought to have existed during the restoration period but cannot be documented. For findings for a certificate of appropriateness issuance, the first is with regard to a historic landmark. The proposed work will neither adversely affect the integrity of the significant architectural features nor adversely affect the historic character or value of the historic landmark. The existing asphalt rolled roofing was permitted over 30 years ago and is not consistent with the craftsman architectural style. The proposed asphalt shingle roof material alteration is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for restoration, because the 1927 Sanborn fire insurance map shows that the original building may have been constructed using asphalt shingles. The Secretary of the Interior standards for restoration recommends recreating missing roofing material that existed during the restoration period based on documentary physical evidence. There is a second finding that has to do with how construction of new improvements affect a designated landmark, but since the scope of work today does not involve any of that, any new construction or addition, it can be found that the scope of work does not adversely affect the use or exterior of the landmark. So going back to CEQA, The project may qualify for a Class 31 categorical exemption, which is for historic resource restoration or rehabilitation, because it is limited to the restoration of a historic resource in a manner consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. And the potential exception from a Class 31 categorical exemption, should the commission meet the findings for approval of a certificate of appropriateness, then the exception will not apply because the project will not cause a substantial adverse change in the significance of this historic resource. And then the project also qualifies for a Class 1 exemption, which is for existing facilities because it involves the exterior alteration to an existing facility and the restoration or rehabilitation of a deteriorated or damaged structure to meet current standards for public health and safety. Tonight, the Planning Commission can approve the application and issue a certificate of appropriateness pursuant to the Planning Commission resolution, and incorporate composition shingles in no more than one color blend deemed appropriate by the Planning Commission, or approve the application with modifications, or deny the application, or continue the application, providing direction to staff and the applicant. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the application and issue that certificate of appropriateness pursuant to the Planning Commission resolution and provide color options for the applicant to choose from. That concludes my presentation. The applicant is here tonight should you have questions for him.
Any questions for staff?
I have a question. Said we can't approve with more than one color?
The option is open to approve for more than one color, but
Oh, we can, so we
Correct.
can, okay,
the
okay.
goal is to approve, the commission may approve more than one color, but the goal is to use one color consistently on all roofs.
Perfect.
Any questions for staff?
Do you mean all Craftsman roofs in the city or all roofs on this building complex?
All roofs on this, for the main building and the garage on this site, yes.
So just for this site?
Yes.
All right, I think that's all the questions we have for staff. Any questions for the applicant?
Just one.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi.
You can state your name for the record.
Jim Moran. I'm the representative for the owner, Mr. Glenn Weissman. He's the new owner of the Tricraft House.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I mean, the roof looks pretty shredded. Is it
It's-
like in its last legs
It's in
or
its
worse
last
than
leg,
that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's actually at this point, it needs to just be done, and that's why we're here to
Okay.
take care of it right away to kind of preserve what's left of it.
Long-
I did bring a sample because I know this is kind of weird to approve something on a flat screen TV. If you guys want to see it, it might help with
Sure.
the high definition part.
Sure.
Of it.
And then I have a question. Does the applicant have a preferred roof color?
You know, I don't think so, but on here there's actually the colors. Hold on, do you wanna- The other thing I was going to mention that, you know, between the fire, there's also the whole energy compliance element that we've got to comply with. So this product does meet the Title 24, which we've got to also deal with. So
Yeah, are these higher grade materials for roofing?
yes, this is I'm going to go on the higher end. This is like in cost, this is comparable to like a lightweight concrete. But the staff and I talked for a while, and we believe the concrete tile would not fit the architecture, and we thought, and as we went back, we kind of went through a process that we thought that, ideally the wood shingle would probably what it was, but there's also evidence that it could have been composite back in 1914 or whatever the year it was built. So we're just thinking this is the answer for longevity, for safety, and for energy compliance. It kind of makes it all seem to work. And I think the browns and the dark grays would be, in there. I would be, we could even take it to a level where if you want to give staff the authority to potentially, once we go a little, when we pull permits and stuff, I can actually bring in sheets that maybe staff could approve at that level versus having you guys have to pick colors. I know it's not something you might want to do, but.
I got one question. Are they planning on painting at the same time or just doing the roof now?
Yeah,
Is it kind of like the color thing to me? Like, well, with the color the house is now, it might be one color for a roof. But if you paint it, a different color, I was just curious if they were planning on that or.
Yeah, at this point, they're trying to, there's been some deferred maintenance, and so they're trying
Right.
to encapsulate
Stop
the
that.
house. So the roof is the big one, and then they're gonna, another, doesn't affect the commission, would be some interior, like, air conditioning, heating, some, they still got knob and tube, it still have a 100 amp meter. So just kind of bring it up to today's standards, which is all interior work. So at this point, there's no exterior work being, besides the roof, and that's why we're here tonight.
Okay.
I know you got a lot of better things to do than to talk about
Ah,
roof materials,
okay.
but that's kind of through the process. This is what Josh has been great to work with. We've kind of had to go down the rabbit hole into trying to find what was there, and the pictures are limited to see what the house was, originally. So I think good point, and I think maybe that would be something that on a staff level we could even bring in. An interior, not an interior designer, but some sort of design. I know one.
Right, I think,
Yeah, paint
I
color.
think I saw a couple colors, like, I think the garage is one color and the house is another, or something, like, one was green and one was tan, or, I don't know, I mean, I am happy that we get to, help, and that another rolled roof can't be put on it.
Yeah.
Because it looks horrible. Obviously it doesn't fit the character, the design of the house, and, but as far as, picking a color, I don't know. I think I would I'll tend to stay with the recommendation from Long Beach,
Yeah.
that it's not black. And I think the charcoal on here looks pretty black. And, the
We'll handle that in
barkwood,
deliberation
shakewood,
though, right?
kinda, yeah, oh, sorry, yeah.
Kind of like anything with wood in it. Sounds nice.
So we'll work on color and deliberation. Are there any other questions for?
I know you're going with a heftier product, and so I think that's good for longevity. But are there any concerns about the weight of it?
yeah, and-
Structurally?
Structurally, we're okay. This is actually considered a lightweight. It's actually lighter than, the other option would be a lightweight concrete tile, and
Well,
that,
lightweight concrete is, that's not even in the ballpark. I mean,
not in the
what we're
ballpark,
used to
so-
when this thing was built was a wood shingle, probably.
so
So that's really light.
this
and
works.
That's heavier than that.
This works for the engineering, yes.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will take public comment. Any person may address the Planning Commission concerning this specific agendized item. The commission welcomes your attendance and participation. We'll bring it back for deliberation. Anybody want to start?
I think it's fine. I would probably just say, not going with the darker, but even try to go as light as you can, because for Title 24, there's a whole heat absorption kind of thing that happens with a darker tile, right? So whatever lighter you can go is probably the better, is still staying within the color scope, so, because that'll reflect as much light away, right? So,
What colors?
Well, so we don't even have to
Can you
specify a
bring up the
color,
colors again?
but we don't even have to specify a color. We can just say not the charcoal and let
yeah,
the
like
applicant
not
decide.
these two or something, I
Okay.
guess, yeah.
I mean, that is kind of,
All right, and let staff, just work with.
I
that.
don't even think
That's
it
fine.
needs staff input. I mean, do we
No,
want
I
them to
agree.
come back?
No, I agree.
yeah,
Give them
yeah.
as much
I think,
latitude
yeah,
as
just
possible.
not that
Giving them the
slate.
most flexibility to, because it's out of stock or whatever,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so if the darkest one is charcoal, then it sounds like we're all in agreement that just not charcoal.
Okay,
I'm fine with that.
that sounds good to me.
All right. Then I guess I will look for a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness with any color other than charcoal.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve certificate of appropriateness 24-01 with any color, with the materials presented with any color but charcoal.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda, we have a discussion of the pre-approved plans and designs for accessory dwelling units. Do we have a presentation from staff? Manager Lin.
As Chair, the next presentation will be delivered by Planner Huang.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight's discussion will be on the pre-approved plans and designs for accessory dwelling units. Some background. The Assembly Bill 1332, amended last year, requires local agencies to develop a program for the pre-approval of accessory dwelling units plans by January 1st, 2025. Recently, the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments provided some ADU prototypes from 5 vendors as part of their Affordable Housing Incubator Program. This program is funded by the Regional Early Action Program, REAP, as part of their sub-regional partnership program. In the recent meetings, the San Gabriel Valley COG has directed a city to provide a selection of ADU prototypes to receive construction plans for us to review. The overall pre-approved ADU program, the intent will be to streamline the process and permitting of ADUs, while also providing residents a selection of vendor-owned ADU prototypes, utilizing ADU sizes of 500 square feet or less to allow them to not be subject to additional applications such as low impact development fees and also school fees. This program will also be compliant with our municipal code section 17.22 for accessory dwelling units. This will be the requirements and also compliant with building, structural, fire, electrical, and mechanical California codes. Within this program, we also want to introduce a reduced application fee option. This will require the property owner to obtain a restrictive covenant to ensure that it is occupied by an individual of very low or low income levels. And just to note that our current application fees for an ADU entitlement would be $2,817. So this would be a reduced or waived application fee option. For tonight's discussion, the staff is recommending the Planning Commission to review and discuss the plans and designs for pre-approved ADUs from the following vendors: Next Dwelling LLC, Abodu ADU, Get ADU, Yakov, and also Swiftly Office, and to also additionally provide input on which plans and designs to select and receive construction plans for. So in the next couple slides, we'll be going over the ADU prototypes that we've received, and then some of the vendors also provided renderings. And if the Planning Commission would like to view them, we can also take a look at them after the presentation. So the first vendor would be Next Dwelling LLC. The smallest prototype that they provided is a 400 square foot studio and 1 bathroom. This vendor provides various roof types that an applicant can choose from flat, gable, and shed, and also multiple architectural styles such as mid-century, rustic, contemporary, and Spanish. The next one would be a 600 square foot, also 1 bedroom, 1 bath, with a flat or shed roof types and mid-century modern architectural styles. Following would be an 800 square foot ADU. It would be 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, only shed roof types, and also mid-century Spanish modern architectural styles. And then their largest prototype provided would be a 1,000 square foot ADU with 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. Same roof types and architectural styles as the 800 square foot, while also doing Monterey style. The next vendor is Abodu. They showcase the smallest ADU prototype in the catalogs provided, which is 304 square feet, a studio with 1 bathroom, shed roof type, and a contemporary architectural style. All of the prototypes that they've provided are prefabricated and also assembled prior to installation. So the next one is 505 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and they all share the same roof type and architectural style. Similar to the previous one, this one is 540 square feet. It's 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and then the largest prototype provided from them would be a 610 square foot ADU, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. The following vendor would be Get ADU. Their smallest ADU prototype is 476 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, with a gable roof type, and also contemporary architectural style. An additional feature that this vendor provides in the smaller ADU size would be an entry porch. And then the other prototype would be a 700, and their largest being 800 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, same roof type as being gable, and also the architectural style will also include farmhouse and additional features of an entry porch and a rear deck area. The next vendor we'll be taking a look at is Yakov. They feature a 497 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath with a flat roof and Spanish architectural style with a large outdoor patio area. And their second design is a 740 square feet prototype with 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a gable roof, and modern architectural style. And the final vendor we'll be taking a look at tonight would be Swiftly Office. They have 3 designs. The first one being 467 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, with clear story roof type and a modern architectural style. Their second ADU would be 689 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, with the same roof type and architectural style. The final ADU would be, the largest would be 689 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, with the same roof type and architectural style. So as a reminder for the discussion, staff is recommending the Planning Commission to review and discuss the plans for the pre-approved ADUs and additionally provide their input. We're suggesting maybe 1 or 2 plans that are under 500 square feet, and if the Planning Commission would like to view the renderings, then we could take a look at those as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So, any questions for staff?
I do have a question. You said there was the reduced fee for low and very low income. Is that something we're proposing, or is that part of that bill 1332 or whatever it was? You know,
so that reduced fee option is not included in the bill. It's something that staff has proposed.
okay.
Yeah.
What is the requirement for time that restriction is placed on?
For the program overall, or?
Yeah, so if we give a $2,000 fee discount to a very low or low income person, how long, can they just move out the next month and anybody could move in? I'm just trying to see how long that, like if we're tying that, we can't tie it, we're not selling them the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious how we're enforcing that.
So staff can choose the amount of time that the restrictive covenant lasts for, but it's usually 40 to 50 years.
Okay, even on an ADU like this? Okay.
So then those, if they get built at that level, then those would forever be counted as part of our arena numbers.
Correct. That's the goal, to fulfill the very low housing units.
And enforcement happens how in something like that? Or we don't talk about that?
The restrictive covenant is a legally binding document that runs with land use fee. So if there's evidence that somebody's violating the restrictive covenant, the city can sue, for example, with an injunction to stop the conduct from happening.
And it runs with just that portion of the land?
Yes, it would. The restrictive covenant would be specifically for the ADU.
And then after 50 years, the covenant is void
Yes.
or revised? I see. Okay.
Did I hear you correctly that the Obodu, these names are just fantastic. Fantastic
Appreciate
names.
the Get ADU, that's very.
The Get I saw an automatic website with that name, yeah. But the Obodu, did I hear you correctly that you buy the materials directly from them?
Yes, so they are a company that they assemble the ADUs on their like warehouse areas. They're prefabricated, and they'll actually bring the whole structure to the property.
And then crane it into
exactly,
position?
yeah.
Other questions for staff?
I need some clarity on what we're actually approving. So we're gonna pick two that is gonna go through plan check and basically approve them after all of that, so they make it easier for them to just utilize it and just kind of put it into their site. Is that?
Correct. So the program, the city will be footing the plan check process and all the fees for those two prototype, and then we'll advertise it on our city website for residents to use.
The idea being that because ADUs we have absolutely zero purview over, they have to be done ministerially and approved in 30 days and all this stuff. This, by giving them a pre-approved option, helps us kind of have a little say in what it is that we're allowing in there.
We get design review on a ADU, which is great. I mean,
Yep.
And it also allows them to apply for a waiver of the fee itself, correct? Because they're going with something that causes less staff time, et cetera. Is that part of the rationale for the reduced fee, or can anybody apply for that?
So there's two parts to this. One is to select the prototype, and then it will go through plan check, and then they'll be available for residents to use. The second part of it is if they opt into have a restricted covenant, then the city could consider reduced fee or waive fee for their application.
And does that require anything from the commission, or that's just something that would happen as part of the fee levels that are set annually with the city council?
Yes, it'll be with the city council.
Okay, so then that one doesn't come before us.
Right. Okay, that's fine.
just curious, do we have is there an estimate of how much that would save by putting a covenant on there for low or very low income? How much fee would they save?
So our current fee is about $2,800, so that fee will be waived.
So it's just 28, okay.
Completely agree. No.
I think that's a minuscule price to pay to get our arena numbers.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't sat through
No,
one of our arena meetings.
I have no problem with
I
that.
think he's wondering whether it's enough or whether we should like
Well,
give them
is
more
it-
money.
I wouldn't do it.
As an owner, I wouldn't do it for
No,
50
because
to
then
50
I got,
years. It's like-
when I
50
try to
years.
sell the house, I mean, you've got that stipulation on there for $2,000. So I don't know.
It doesn't mean that you
I
can't
don't mean
inhabit
we
it
can't
as
not have it.
an owner. It means
Right.
you can't rent it out to anybody other than that. You can inhabit it as an owner, so.
Oh, right. But if I,
It's just extra for
Sold the
only
house.
$2,800. It's a lot. I mean, I'd still rent it to someone of low income, but to
like
like
a-
have that on my deed.
it's a refrigerator. I mean, just about. Okay. And I think the recommendation is just to approve, I noticed a 500 square foot,
Under 500.
under 500. I just noticed most of these, every company has one that's under 500, but we're just looking at the small ones. I just curious, like,
We'll be able to deliberate on it,
Okay.
the pros and cons of that. I
Okay.
think staff's recommendation was
okay,
smaller ones.
Right, so the idea behind the COG is, since we're providing the streamlined services and the pre-approved plans, we wanted to keep the footprint smaller to incentivize the program.
okay.
So which one of these are prefabricated and craned in versus site-built, or are they all, any of them site-built, or?
The only ones that are prefabricated are from Abodu.
So the rest are all plans.
Mm-hmm.
Abodu's the only one that you buy the kit.
Got it. Okay, so that makes sense to me, okay.
What's the lead time on, did they tell you at CAG what the lead time is on purchasing one of those? One of the Abodu houses? Like, will it show up before your permit does?
Unlikely.
Or like a year after your permit does.
For 3 years after.
Yeah, we have not been told what are the lead time. The city did approve a prefabricated structure on Adam, and it took them about a year to get the prefabricated.
From the same
To-
company?
Not from,
Okay.
just say general prefabricated company to
Okay.
ship the crane.
And how many square foot was that?
That was the entire single-family home, so
Yeah, it
that's
came in
about
like 2 or
2,000.
3 pieces, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any other questions for staff?
Did staff have any recommendations or preferences?
Just under 500 square feet.
All right, if there's no more questions, then we'll take public comment. At this time, anyone may come before us and speak on this specific agendized item.
Edward Garcia, 117 East Grandview. I'll just give you some input from the council. We were very excited about having some pre-approved plans. We're excited to see what was going to happen with this, especially in light of us just recently getting our RENA or housing element approved and qualified about a year ago. So we got an 8-year cycle running. It's my recollection that that housings kind of allocates our ADUs at different levels without actually checking, is it no rent or low income. I just want to caution, and because my hope and understanding, and again, I was very excited. I'm very excited about the work the COG has done. Us picking vendors, I'm not really a big fan of that, especially a prefab, and you're just stuck in somebody's, can bring these things in, and this part of our plan check, it's pre-approved. What I was envisioning was maybe waiving everybody, you come in and pay for plans, and then you have a contractor come and build it. That's what I was envisioning, and I don't see, because I didn't read the COG report, I used to be the COG liaison, I'm not now, that these aren't, that these are just plans, because I'm trying to find the profit incentive here. Obviously, they're not going to sell the plans to us once unless they're going to get a big check. So I feel like they're going to be the ones that are going to want to build these things. And I'm not a big fan of pre-approving contractor vendors. I know we have vendors that do our arborist and those things for the city, but working within the city, just personally, I'm a little gun shy in that. So if I would recommend during your deliberations, maybe asking some questions about that. Because what I was envisioning were some plans that someone could come to the desk and say, what are the pre-approved plans? Oh, I'll go with that and I'll take it to my contractor and we'll get this thing built. But that was my feeling. But again, the council is very excited about, because we have to have the streamlining process, very excited about having pre-approved plans and making it easier to meet those RENA numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing nobody else, then we'll go ahead and bring it back for deliberation.
I had similar concerns, because these are all companies that, and some of them I've heard of, and that's why I was asking about the prefab versus, all of that, because that's sort of the way the market has gone, where they'll provide the plans, but they're gonna make their money on building this thing and bringing it to you, right? So I don't know how these people would make it just handing over some plans and somebody else building it, and they get all the liability for it or something, it seems a little weird. And maybe it's just me not understanding their business model of some way, but,
Yeah, and to that end, I think that when this initially first started coming around, and we talked about this with Commissioners Spears, Hutt, Pevsner, and myself, and I forget who else, but we had envisioned, I think we actually recommended at that time, before any of this came about, commissioning drawings from potentially local architects.
Right.
The same way that we've,
makes sense.
gone to Safos and have them do our report, but actually commission a couple of designs that are specific to Sierra Madre, that understand Sierra Madre, and would be done with the idea that these would be very, very low cost or free to the end user, right? Maybe we do something where it's
options on
yeah,
a little bit, yeah.
a couple of different styles, a couple of different options, but more like we'll get 10 of these at $500 at a $500 licensing fee or whatever to offset the costs of spending some amount of money to commission a local architect to do this, or wherever we got it, right? But
That makes
we wanted to we had contemplated owning the plans so that we could use them for anybody rather than tying anybody into a vendor. And that was my exact concern why I was asking about Abodu, because I do not like the idea of approving something for people to use where we're recommending a vendor. Because
And they go out of business.
we look like the face of that vendor then, and the city cannot be the
They
face
go
of
out
a
of
vendor.
business and they have
Right,
to
well,
lose money or something.
if it's poor quality and everything, we just recommended and suggested.
Yeah.
We did more than recommend it. I mean,
Yeah.
So I just did a little Googling just on one of the non-prefab options. This was Next Dwelling. What does Next Dwelling do? Handles the entire process, including designs, drawing, permitting, and construction. So the construction.
So they're gonna have to build it for you, is what they're saying.
Sounds like it.
Do we have information from the CAG meeting as to what the business model looks like with this? I guess I had erroneously assumed that CAG had funded the licensure of these. Is there a recurring fee that gets paid back to the architects, the architectural firms on these?
So as part of the REAP 1.0 program from the SGV COG, they only identify the architects, and the next step is for us to acquire the construction document for the city's plan check process. They have not told us about different architects' business model.
Okay. Good intentions, I'm certain. I mean, it sounds like there's a general sense that recommending one of these without understanding the financial model behind it's probably not the way to go. And I don't know exactly what our purview is, because we don't have any budget dollars associated with this planning commission here. But certainly we could put forth a recommendation for staff to work with and take back to city council if we so choose. And then city council can decide the time or the size and shape of budget, RFP, what have you, with that. If we want to talk about some of the things we liked in here and didn't like, in the eventuality that staff will get to move forward on a project. If we recommended one, we could certainly do that.
I will
But-
also mention that I looked up Get ADU, if it's the right one, getadu.com, and that one is just plans. They offer to help you find a builder, but it doesn't say that they are the builder. So there's at least one of the ones that's just plans. There's one prefab one. There's one that makes you can do the construction with them, and then I haven't Googled the other two.
So the one,
Yeah, and-
the one about the Get ADU one, if it's just plans, it's usually like a basic set, right? It's a floor plan, elevations, and the roof plan or something. But they're not gonna go through the plan check process and put a set together, because they have no incentive to, right? Then,
It says they have a structural plan as well, architectural plan and structural plan.
Yeah, and I think that, to your point, what we're looking for is literally a set of plan check plans that we hand over to you, and you give to a builder, and if they follow those,
and the architect does agree to a lump sum to create it. And
Right.
then maybe they get a small amount every time it gets used or something, yeah.
something
Right.
of that nature.
But it sounds like if we decided to go with one of these, that would be the next step for them to go to that company and
Get the
procure that.
information, yeah.
Right. It feels to me like this was just a kind of a recommendation list, a resource list,
Good start.
and that the city has to do the diligence on it, on its own. And so I think what I would recommend is us giving feedback to staff on what we think
What we
a,
like.
a plan, well, how we think that this should be, the entire program should be engineered. Is that what you're looking for? Yeah, okay. So I think what I've heard everybody say is that we really want to either own a set of plans that we're allowed to then reuse at our discretion, or have a minimal licensure fee
Yeah.
on a per-use basis.
Which I guess could be incorporated with the fees.
Yes. I mean, that could be the whole fee, or the city could even offset it.
Yeah.
That, the city could decide, the first 4 ADUs that happen that year will be paid for by the city, what have you.
Or maybe that incentivizes people to use the pre-approved plans, yeah.
Right, yeah, that's the overall plan, right, is
Yeah.
let us pick one that fits in our neighborhood, right? I mean, some of these are lovely and fanciful, but the 2-story ones that get dropped into somebody's yard, I don't want
Yeah, that's
one of
gonna be a
those
tower,
right next to me,
yeah.
right? Like,
Right, right.
by right.
The 2-story ones seem environmentally efficient though, with the cooling, but you're right. I don't know.
But, okay, so then, this is a bit freeform, so we'll try to muddle through this. But I think what I'm hearing is that we'd like probably 3 plans? I mean, is that,
3 plans so we could pick 2 kind of thing? Is that what we're thinking?
well, I guess I was trying to come up with the end goal of how many sets of plans we should use. I think that maybe you're thinking about this right, is that we should talk about it the opposite way of what we're looking for. I think what we're looking for is a set of plans that are construction ready,
Yeah.
that for either a small or no fee, people can just get handed these plans that are pre-approved for the city and build against those plans. Is there a style that we want to?
That was what I was gonna bring up next, like this one, that next, it's the first, I think it's Exhibit A, the first company. They have a floor plan, but it seems like a couple of the ones they have can be, you can make it look, they've got one where basically they just kind of round arches and make it Spanish style, and, where the one looks a little more modern, but it's all the same structure. So structurally, I think it's just, you'd know more about this than I,
Yeah.
but it's
It can be
more
done,
of, it's more of a facade. So if we had, something like that where we had, I don't know, a 500-foot studio, but that could have different facade options, kind of like they are doing, for each plan, I think we'd get, I don't know, maybe a little more bang for our money, just because we'd have, in one plan, we'd have 4 different.
So the way these plans would
Styles?
be used, you want to come up with a set of drawings that kind of has these variations, and maybe you just cross out the ones you're not doing or something. Kind of, that's the way it would be handled. And
Okay.
and then these plans would be basically attached to a couple of sheets that go in front of it, right? Like a site plan that makes it very specific to that site.
Like, yeah,
All the local, requirements.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of the backup for the construction part of it, right? And then you show the footprint, and then you show it on your site, right? So that's kind of the way it's gonna work. It's a lot like in my world where I go to the division of the state architect, where, like portables, right?
Yep.
It's kind of like, those are pre-approved, and there's a whole set that already, they're built in the factory, right, of these things. And then they're attached to your site plan, and then you get that approved.
Right.
Um,
And I don't think we're
Yeah.
looking for portables per se,
No, no, no,
but that
I'm just saying
concept.
that process.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not get portables there, but,
Yeah.
so I think the idea is the city will probably have to go out for an RFQ or RFP probably, and
Right.
just get, input and saying that, for this proposal, an architect can basically put together, and we're probably looking at maybe like 2 or 3 configurations, where it's a little bit longer and maybe it's a little bit squarer, so then you can kind of
Right.
fit it into your site, right?
right.
If it's square, maybe it doesn't fit in everyone's backyard or something, right? So maybe it's a little elongated, a little square, and those are the 2 options that you get on this plan, and then you get to pick the style, right? And kind of a checklist of, let's go Spanish or something.
And it very well could be that, so I think if I can, I'm sorry, you were gonna say something.
Oh, just that I was gonna echo, your point that having the variety of style options, I think fits with our neighborhood. Like, I think even having maybe at least two different, if not 3 different, with all the different style options for each of them might be helpful, because, I do think we're not like a cookie cutter neighborhood, and having just the same ADU, 100 places, although we had control over that, it still, I don't think is quite the right feel as like, 3 ADUs in 4 different styles each, then, all of a sudden you can't tell
Right.
that they're all from the same pre-approved set of plans.
Right, I mean, I can look at this one, it's the next 600 flat, I don't think we have that available to show, but it's page 124 of the PDF document I have. And you could look at this one place and I think that could fit in just about any backyard in town. I don't think we want to put a modern, here's a modern structure in a Spanish style house, but they've kind of got things that'll
Yeah.
kind of go for it, and
Yeah, so then I guess,
yeah,
recommending that, an RFP, be generated that solicits, I think we need probably to Commissioner Yu's point, I think we probably would need kind of a long skinny model, like a square model, and maybe a small L, right?
Something,
So-
yeah.
Something like that. Because then you could cover the L for some porch or something, right? Like
Yeah.
I think if we gave 3 unique situations like that, that should be enough to cover the various kind of landforms that we would have. And I think the commission
The
would.
more variation we can give, the more, probably higher percentage of people actually using it, right? So
Absolutely.
that's good.
right.
And they did some interesting things. The next plans were interesting in that they did 3 roof styles, right? Because it had the flat, the gable, and the shed, right? And so those could be things, I know every architect is going to look at it and want to do it slightly different, but those would be things that would distinguish the final product, I think, from the architect, is having multiple roof models for the same one. And honestly, like, until we see the product, I think it's hard to give too much feedback, but I loved the way that some of these look, where they look like miniature full-size homes.
Yeah.
Right.
that's
But those would also be really imposing for 500 square feet, right? So like it's weighing those differences, so
High pitch ones are a little, yeah.
the height, yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
No, please finish.
Does that give you the kind of feedback you're looking for?
Yes, do you want to set a parameter on the square footage between?
I think keeping it small makes sense.
Yeah, my only thought was, yeah, so remind me what there's a square footage limit in the law?
I believe it's 1,200 square feet or 50% of the house, of the size of the house, whichever is less. But I'm gonna look it up and.
What,
But there was also the LID
What-
stuff and everything, right?
what are we getting requests for?
Right, so, the minimum that we have to allow, that state allowed to build is 800 square feet on all the residential, parcels. And, the LID threshold is 500 square feet, and also the school fee threshold is 500 square feet or less. They are exempt.
Maybe I didn't understand what you said. You said that the minimum is 800 square feet?
So all the residential parcel are allowed to build a 800 square feet ADU
The maximum then.
maximum
By right.
by right.
And then, I thought 1,200 was the,
Well, up to 1,200 based on percentage of your home and that kind of stuff.
oh, but even if, so the minimum is 800, even if you don't have the calculation for it, and the maximum is 1,200 where the calculation allows. Okay.
Another point I want to make at the earlier discussion is a city-owned plan versus an architect-owned plans. So if city owns the plans, then the city is liable for the every 3-year code updates. So we'll have to go through that. And if it's architect-owned, we direct it to the architect, and they make sure that they have all the code updates every 3 years. So city doesn't have to worry about that.
So what I would recommend is really opening it up as part of the RFP and allowing them to price it based on those different options. It could be cost prohibitive to have somebody commit to doing an update to the plans every 3 years, right? So I think that just allowing the freedom and let's see what we get back. That would be my recommendation.
That makes sense.
In terms of the 500 square feet, I notice a lot of these plans are either just under 500 or around 600. I wonder if we might up it to 600 just to allow more variation. 500 just seems rather small to live in. Like, I imagine some people will have families in here and stuff like that.
If we're
Right.
gonna
What is it?
pass that threshold of the 500 for the school fees, then we might as well go to the 800 then. I mean, it's not, right?
What, I was, just a question. We're getting ADUs built in town. How big are the ADUs that are being built in town? Like, are they mostly 500, 400 square feet? Are they mostly like 8,000 square feet?
800 or 1,000, I
Eight-
think is what he was saying. If you call it an ADU, there's no
800
size limitation.
800 to 1,000.
Yes, it's usually 800 to 1,200 for new construction. And conversion is usually garage conversion with an addition, so a little bit more than 400.
But they wouldn't use our plans anyway, because they're converting the garage, right? I mean,
It's a box, they could. I mean, one of these ADUs is just a box. It could be the size of a garage. You could just configure all these walls and then.
I think 800 makes sense.
To me, yeah.
I think so,
800
too.
seems like it makes
So the only challenge is that I want to balance what it is that what our goal is. Is our goal to give them plans that are ready to go at the statutory minimum? Or is our goal to incent and reward less than the statutory minimum?
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't go above 800 at all. That doesn't make sense,
Is it our
but
goal to be able to have some say in what gets built out there and most of the time on ADUs, right?
I feel like if
'Cause
we made it
otherwise,
too
we don't get to
small-
review any of it, which means that they could just do whatever the heck they want to do, right?
right.
Well, they can do
Give
that,
them
they
those
can do
size
that,
most likely people will use at 800 is, a good between, right? So.
yeah, and we can also revisit the issue.
Yeah.
Right, we could put the 500 out there to incent the smaller building, and if nobody uses it in 2 or 3 years, then add an 800, right? I mean, honestly, how many ADUs are we building a year right now, would you say?
We usually get application around 20
20?
applications.
But yeah.
That's more than any of us
So
thought,
that's
isn't
an
it?
extra 60 potentially that we'd be missing out on, because my guess is with the 500, based on what you've said, that no one's gonna use it.
Yeah, that might be too small.
Yeah, I think a larger one bedroom, to me, I noticed a lot of these, like, 2 bedrooms are like, 760 square feet. It's like, I don't, it doesn't seem like a thing that would be a Sierra Madre want. It would be more a larger one bedroom for your, in-laws when they come over, or
800 square feet, you can get a
or
good
so.
2-bedroom.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like
that's-
apartment
You can get
size,
it
which
good,
is
yeah.
good. So
That's
I
right
feel
at
like
the
it
edge,
has
I think.
like a variety of use cases. I feel like with the 500, no one's gonna use it,
Right.
so we might as well just.
Yeah, I guess
do
my,
it.
my only concern is that every year, the state gets more and more liberal with what they allow in the way of ADU. And the next thing is going to be you're allowed 2 ADUs by right. And so if we start encouraging 800 square foot ADUs by right and give them the plans, and then the state comes back and says, now you can have 2, we got 1,600 square feet. So I'm trying to, think forward to what we've seen in the trends from the state, and it's more and more and more. And so if we go straight to what the statutory minimum is, I feel like we're giving stuff away.
But if they're not gonna use it when they have the 2 plans, then they can also just build their own, in that hypothetical scenario, off. They don't have to use our prefabricated plans anyway.
Right, and then they have the additional expense of finding an architect, of getting a drawing of their own, and managing that process and coming back through plan check. This cuts out a ton of time and a ton of work.
So maybe we capture some of the people that were going to build a 1,200 square foot one and using an 800 one because it's the easier path.
Yeah, that's what I think, yeah. Like, I feel like 501 is like shed or something.
Yeah, I guess the good news is that we don't have the final say on this, and the city council gets to they hold the purse strings, and so they'll have the final say on this. So maybe we can just make sure that we note for whatever gets sent to them that that we would appreciate them contemplating the differences between going straight to the statutory in light of the state's history versus starting at a smaller, understanding that people may opt for the more expensive but bigger one and not leverage this. And that those were the things that we were discussing in our meeting.
Where we
Is that
jump-
fair?
Yeah, where we have like a 650 one bedroom or whatever. It's more luxurious because the rooms are larger or whatever. Where we're trying to maybe sell that instead of,
And I think that part of that could be what we hear back from the architects in the RFP is, we've seen the great success from 525 square feet. It just fills the right size.
Yeah,
And then we
yeah.
came up with one that's 640 that we really think would be your luxurious model, and we think you're okay not trying. Or they say, I haven't built anything less than 800 in the last 1,000 I've built. I just don't
Right.
think we
They're
have
gonna-
that.
They're gonna know that better.
They're going to know that. The market will dictate that.
And then I'm also just looking at, I was originally not even proposing going up to 800, but like something like 600, just because all of these models, the under 500 are reliably studios, and if we go up to something like 600, it's 1 bedroom, 1 bath, which seems more humane. Or if it's at least over 500, we're going from a studio, which is like basically you're living in a single room, to 1 bedroom, 1 bath, which is,
Right.
you have your kitchen area, you have your bedroom, your living room kind of thing. Under 500, there is one, the Get ADU, that you do get 1 bedroom, 1 bath for that. Yeah, I guess they're not.
Abodu has a design like that too, so I think that it's
Yeah.
possible
It's
to be
doable,
done.
yeah.
I think that it's just trade-offs, and I think that some architectural minds that specialize in ADUs or just do a ton of them probably have some tricks of the trade that we'll get their benefit of.
Yeah, I just saw some bedrooms in here that were like, 11 by 10, and I don't know. just doesn't seem very.
Well, remember the A in ADU stands for not primary,
I
but
know, but
accessory.
remember the A in
Right.
housing is for affordable, and we don't have that. I mean, like, if you're trying to move to this community, my house is now $1.3 million, and I could barely afford to move here 5 years ago when it was $840,000. And like, how are you going to get people to? There will be no kids in the schools. Like, you know, I imagine that families are going to try to live in these things, and like, even if we say that, you know, if we have a bunch of 500, then that's a bunch of like families trying to pack into like, there's like a baby on the floor or something like that. I don't know. Like, you're thinking grandparents or whatever. I'm thinking like all my friends that don't have houses, like just trying to cram into this to get into our good school
Already have a
district.
roof.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So then, is that enough guidance from us? And if so, what would next steps be?
Yes, so that would be, we have directions right now, and then next step probably will have to create an RFQ or RFP and solicit local architects or surrounding architects and reject the one that from the COG.
Okay. And so that would be something that is a request that's made of city council.
Right, so we'll have to go to city council and then to set up the RFQ and RFP.
Okay. And you would let us know before that meeting so that we can all show up and weigh in.
We'll do that.
Anything else for them, for staff on this?
No.
Good discussion. Good job.
All right, next up. This short timer. All right, next up, our planning commission reports.
I have no report.
Nothing from me.
Come out and support I think there's gonna be a fun run through the Y. Town, it's kind of like what we used to do on the 4th of July. So, something to put a plug in for everybody, get some exercise.
Anything to report?
I just wanted to mention again, I'll be gone during July.
I did attend the city council meeting where they discussed and held semi-first readings of the various code amendments that we'd put through there. And I wanted to mention that it was not just Councilmember Garcia, but it was every member of the council that was thankful for the hard work that we put into all those. I know that it was a couple of late nights and quite a few meetings to get to where we got, but they were all very appreciative and expressed the gratitude to the council, to the commission for all the work that we'd done. And it was a long night for them too. I think we finally left around midnight. So I appreciated their and they start at 5. So it was a longer meeting than they may have beat our record. So I certainly appreciated all the hard work that they put in as well. Planning and preservation reports.
Chair, our next meeting is on June 20th. We will continue our annual review for Alverno's Master Plan CUP. And we also have another item reviewing a historic destination for the Sierra Madre Playhouse.
All right.
This is my report.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. Then we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.